Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX World special coverage of the SCO Summit. We continue to track developments from Tianjin in China. We have more information coming in on the bilateral talks that were held between Russian President Vladimir Putin and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The talks have now ended while the Indian PM urged for a ceasefire to take place between Russia and Ukraine. These statements were made in his opening remarks. The talks also focused on preparation for Putin's upcoming visit to India, which is going to take place in December. Russian presidential aide Yuri Yushakov has stated that earlier it was their first in-person meeting this year, although they maintained regular contact via the phone. This is something that President Putin pointed towards in his opening remarks as well. Now, source-based news coming in, reports are indicating further details on the background of the bilateral talks that were held. According to reports, Vladimir Putin desired to travel together with Prime Minister Modi from the SCO conference venue to the bilateral meeting venue, which was a hotel situated at distance from the SCO conference venue. He waited for about 10 minutes so that Prime Minister Modi could then join him. We did see that photograph of the two leaders in the car together. The both leaders traveled together in Vladimir Putin's car. They conversed on various issues. They spent another 45 minutes, according to reports, in the car even after reaching the bilateral meeting venue. So they did have a one-to-one discussion for 45 minutes inside the car even after reaching the bilateral meeting venue. Following this, both leaders had a full-fledged bilateral meeting. There was a delegation-level talk that was held. This went on for over an hour. Meanwhile, at the summit itself, the SCO members have signed the Shenzhen Declaration. All 10 members are endorsing a development strategy for the SCO until 2035. The member states also agreed to accept Laos as a dialogue partner, strengthening the organization's reach as well. We are learning that 24 documents were signed aiming to boost regional security, economic cooperation and strategic partnership in particular. Meanwhile, this is the latest that we are tracking on the broadcast. We have with us Maya Sharma, senior journalist from Bengaluru. We also have Mr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo. I'd like to come across to Ms. Maya Sharma first. Interesting bilateral has taken place between the Indian Prime Minister and the Russian President. There are some exclusive details, source-based details that NewsX World has learnt of. The fact that we've seen earlier the picture that Prime Minister Modi had posted on his Twitter account of traveling with the Russian President in his motorcade. It seemed that they traveled from the SCO venue to the bilateral meeting venue, and then they were in that car for 45 minutes talking to each other. PM Modi did openly in his remarks call for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, we do know that this meeting is coming at a time when Donald Trump has imposed 50% tariffs against India for buying Russian oil. Russia has recently indicated at a 5% discount as well, and India does not seem to be backing down, does not seem to be bowing towards pressure that the US is exerting. There's a bilateral meeting between Putin and Modi slated to take place in December as well. So where do you see the India-Russia equation heading to next?
Well, India and Russia have, of course, had this close friendship for decades now, and it has been a sticking point with the West at many times. They were very unhappy after the Ukraine war started that India was, in fact, still meeting with Russia, negotiating with Russia, and more recently, of course, the anger that the United States has that Indian closeness to Russia means that it's still continuing to buy Russian oil. Well, a fallout of that was the 50% tariffs, which United States has imposed an additional 25% tariff, specifically because India continues to buy Russian oil. But India has made it clear that this friendship with Russia will continue, Prime Minister Modi did speak in this bilateral meeting about the need for peace in Ukraine. He has talked earlier, of course, that this is not an era for war, that there should be peace in Ukraine. And he has spoken to both Zelensky and Putin regarding this. But it's very unlikely that India will move away from this long-term friendship with Russia. It depends on Russia for so much of its defense equipment. Right now, up to 30% of its oil imports are from Russia. And with the United States relationship being volatile, to put it mildly, it's very unlikely that India will try to tone down its relationship with Russia in any way. And this bilateral meeting, that travel in the car, that the optics of this, the fact that they're going away talking together, it's extremely important. And it is a message being sent out by both countries.
Absolutely. And speaking of the optics, we'd seen earlier in the day as well, there was a small moment between Vladimir Putin, Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping ahead of the leaders meet, the summit itself, where all the leaders had delivered their remarks. That's not all. We're getting more news. We're learning that Chinese President Xi Jinping has delivered the closing remarks, and he's emphasized upon the need to uphold common good of the world and strengthen multilateral cooperation. He's called for closer ties between SCO countries as well as international organizations such as the United Nations and ASEAN, positioning SCO as a pillar in promoting a multipolar world. Xi Jinping has stressed upon opposing hegemonism, power politics and defending international fairness and justice. That's not all. He has announced plans to invite countries to participate in a lunar research station and build an AI cooperation center as well. He has stated that China is committed to expanding photovoltaic and wind power capacity by 10 million kilowatts over the next 5 years, working with SCO states to boost energy, green industry and digital economy cooperation. He's urged for integration, not decoupling, and has also called for promoting inclusive economic globalization, highlighting the SCO region's rich energy resources and large markets. Dr. Nagawa, I'd like to rope you in on this particular point. We've seen Xi Jinping also moot the idea of an SCO development bank. This idea was adopted by all 10 member states of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in the Shenzhen Declaration. They've in fact gone a step further. All countries, barring India, they have reaffirmed their support for the BRI as well. So how, in your opinion, does China now eye using this new initiative, a bank that they're going to be creating, the SCO Development Bank, in order to further the Belt and Road Initiative?
Yeah, in this case, we should remember what happened in the past. China say this is a good infrastructure project and you should receive it. But after that, a huge debate has created the recipient, and China takes the right to control this infrastructure. Hambantota port in Sri Lanka was a good example. So now China say, this is good for you, this is a multipolar world China is seeking. But the reality is China's policy is China first, and expanding influence of China is important course they are seeking. And in the SCO, China is forming the group against Western world or other some global South countries. So that's why what China really did indicate what China will do. So that's why on surface this is beautiful, but indeed this is not, is my opinion.
Indeed, and you know, speaking of the BRI, we do know that the interest rates that the Chinese have outlined for lending money for these infrastructure projects is quite high. Many critics have often pointed to what they coin as debt trap diplomacy on China's end. We've seen what's happened in Sri Lanka with the Hambantota port. We've seen what's happened as far as Nepal owing a lot of money to China is concerned as well. We've seen the CPEC project in Pakistan not really make much headway. So in this context, how do you think China plans to reinforce confidence in its partners regarding the BRI?
Indeed, creating a good reputation with the partner is not the purpose of China's infrastructure project. because where China is investing in the Indian Ocean region indicate that, for example, the infrastructure development happen from the Middle East through the Pakistan to China, Middle East, Myanmar to China, Middle East, the Indian Ocean side of the island, the Malay Peninsula, and the South China Sea side of the Malay Peninsula, the both areas, China is building the port and connected by train. So all of these routes indicate that this is the route to bring the oil from Middle East to China. So that's why on surface China say in the BRI, this is infrastructure project for the local people. But reality is this is constructing route for China, only for China. So this is China first policy, not for locals. So that is the reason when China say the beautiful word, simply the countries should not trust, must not trust. Because China is seeking their national interest, and this is not for the local or recipient countries. That has happened, that will happen. That is current Chinese government.
All right.
I think this is in reality.
All right, I request our guests to stay on with us. We're tracking more news and updates from Shenzhen at the moment. There seems to have been another crucial bilateral meeting that has been held on the sidelines of the summit itself. This is between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan. We're learning that, and this is news coming from the Turkish presidency, we're learning that Turkey is working to find fair and lasting peace to the war in Ukraine. Erdogan has informed Putin that he believes the talks in Istanbul are contributing to peace. I'd like to rope in Ms. Maya Sharma into the discussion. Once again, we've seen several rounds of meetings held between Ukrainian officials as well as Russian officials in Turkey. Though that did result in some prisoner swap agreements, there's been no concrete ceasefire deal that has been reached up until now. Meanwhile, we see Donald Trump mooting a potential trilateral. Ukraine has accepted this. Zelensky has indicated numerous times that Ukraine is willing to come to the negotiating table, yet Russia has not given a concrete response. Do you think this trilateral meeting could catalyze anytime soon?
Well, of course, the President Trump is trying to present himself as a world leader who is brokering peace in many troubled regions. Controversially, of course, he has said that he helped end the brief hostilities between India and Pakistan, which India has not been very enthusiastic about accepting. So when it comes to the Ukraine conflict with Russia, it's gone on too long in the eyes of the world. There has been too much damage, too much suffering, and it's very high profile. It's happening in a region of the world where lots of people are actually paying attention, unlike some other conflict regions in the world. And President Trump would dearly like to feel that he had helped bring the two sides to some sort of peaceful agreement. His treatment of Zelensky in the White House some months ago was not the best way to go forward with this, but a more recent meeting did have a better output. President Trump has also met President Putin in Alaska. So there was a hope that with this powerful world leader, I mean, President Trump may be erratic, but he is a very powerful world leader indeed. The very fact that he's spoken to both of them, there is a hope that there may be some progress in this, but it is, of course, up to President Putin to also accept this arrangement. And both sides need to give in when it comes to the land that's been taken over, to come in to actually try and think about peace. It's a terrible, terrible situation that's gone on. The war has gone on too long, claimed too many lives, both civilians as well as members of the armed forces on both sides. We cannot guarantee this trilateral would happen, but it's obvious that without Ukraine and Russia talking to each other, there can be no ceasefire, which is something, as Prime Minister Modi himself said today, it's something the entire world wants. They want peace in this region. They want peace between Ukraine and Russia.
Indeed, and in fact, earlier in the day when President Putin was in fact delivering his opening remarks at the leaders' meeting, he had specifically called out China. He had also called out India as far as the peace efforts are concerned. He'd thanked both countries. He thanked other nations as well in reaching out in order to gain an understanding as to what exactly transpired in Alaska. I'd also like to rope in Dr. Nagao into the discussion on this particular point. We're of course discussing Kremlin not giving any indication of coming to the negotiating table to end the war. On the other hand, we see Donald Trump making some sort of effort, but it's no secret that he is eyeing the Nobel Peace Prize. He's not very subtle about it. The White House has tweeted about it as well. So even as Trump is mooting for a trilateral, we've recently also seen defense ministers of the EU nations gathering in Denmark, discussing the security guarantees for Ukraine. So in this context, how urgent is it right now for European nations to outline what exactly these guarantees will be?
Simply, if the United States try to solve the problem in the world, this is a good thing. But at the same time, can they achieve it? That is the matter. Because there is a complication in the world. That's why this conflict has happened, and this conflict has not ended yet. So that's why some conflicts already United States arrangement to achieve the ceasefire, at least temporary. That is good news. But at the same time, this is not perfect, of course, and especially the U.S. do not want to intervene too much, too long. This means that after the ceasefire agreed, how to maintain this ceasefire is a matter. And in case of the Russia-Ukraine, that is a very important matter, because who can take the responsibility after ceasefire agreed is affecting the ceasefire agreement itself. So that's why Europeans send the ground troops, American air cover, but Russia do not want the presence of these forces. So in this case, how to achieve it? That is matter. And so very difficult situation they are facing. Nobel Peace Prize matter is as a result it will happen, and President Trump want to get the prime. That is true, but this is small thing indeed, because the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in the past and he said, yes, if he want to get, of course Japan will support it, because this is not expensive for Japan, he said. Nobel Peace Prize itself is not affect anything, because in the past President Obama got Nobel Prizes based on just a remark about non-nuclear world or something, but anything hasn't happened after that. So this is just a remark. So Nobel Peace Prize is a very controversial prize, and nothing has happened after that always. So that's why if President Trump want to get, of course anyone can give him, but nothing will happen after we gave him the Nobel Prize. That's why Prime Minister Shinzo Abe supports President Trump. Yeah, anytime you can get, he said. So that's why this is, yes, personally there's a possibility he really want to get, but at the same time, this is not the big matter indeed. Big matter is how to maintain the ceasefire after U.S. arranged it, and it will affect the world situation, I believe.
Indeed, I'd like to digress a little bit and also point towards another very crucial aspect of the Tianjin Declaration. The Tianjin Declaration has also focused upon the quest against terrorism, the fight against terrorism, and in doing so, it has strongly condemned, all the SCO member states have strongly condemned the Pahalgam terror attack that had taken place on the 22nd of April, in which 26 innocent people had lost their lives. This is, of course, a major development. With us on the broadcast right now is Mr. Keith Vaz. He's a former minister in the United Kingdom. He's joining us live from London. Thank you so much for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. I was referring to the fact that all the SCO member states have now come out and strongly condemned the Pahalgam terror attack. This is a very interesting development, even though the attack itself saw widespread condemnation when it had occurred, with nations coming out and putting out a statement. The SCO so far did not do so. In fact, during the defense ministers' meeting of the SCO leaders, the Pahalgam terror attack was not mentioned at all. India's defense minister refused to join that statement. Now, we see a complete 180 degree as far as the position in which, of course, China's word carries a lot of weight. What do you make of this inclusion, and does this point towards a thaw in ties between India and China that has taken place recently?
Good morning from North Africa. Look, I think that this is a very important development, and I think India will be very pleased at the outcome of this summit, in particular the fact that its colleagues at this summit have condemned terrorism in the strong way in which they have. But from a global point of view, this is an important gathering of international leaders. It is a counterweight to what is happening in the White House, which is chaotic. I think that everyone involved in this would have been very pleased at the outcome, the conclusions, the fact that you've now got three very powerful and important countries working together in this way. So yes, the terrorism issue is vitally important for India and the condemnation, as we've seen. But this summit goes beyond condemnation. I think we owe a duty of thanks. We should be grateful to Donald Trump for turning the economic and political system in the world upside down, because it's brought together India, China, and Russia in a way that was probably not possible had he not done so. So from the global point of view, I regard this as a very important meeting, one that will be repeated and one that sends a very powerful message out to all those who have thought that the only decision maker in the world is the man who sits in the White House. It's clearly not the case. It's clearly the case that Narendra Modi, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin has a say in shaping the politics and economics of the world. And I think that's really important.
Sir, a quick follow-up from you. We've recently seen quite interesting videos surface from the summit itself. It showed a very candid moment between Putin, Modi, and Xi Jinping. They were conversing with each other just before the summit commenced today morning, and they were all smiles while doing so. What's interesting is, just a short while back, the United States Embassy in India has put out a tweet highlighting the partnership between the United States and India as a defining relationship of the 21st century. In fact, they've also put out a quote by Marco Rubio stating that the enduring friendship between India and the US is the bedrock of cooperation and propels both countries forward as they realize the tremendous potential of their economic relationship. What do you make of the timing of this post? Has the optics of what's taken place in Tianjin now finally registering with officials in the Trump administration?
Well, I think that we've had an administration from the 21st of January that is a social media administration. It's social media politics, SMP, as I call it. I'm not surprised that they've issued this tweet. But more is at stake here. I don't think that anyone's going to be impressed by a tweet from the United States Embassy. What they should be doing is speeding up the application process of Indians who want to come and visit the United States. That's a way of demonstrating a good relationship between the two countries. I think it takes currently 1 year for someone who wants to go and visit Disneyland in order to get a visa to go and visit the United States from India. Maybe they can start with some practical measures if they want to create a good and long-lasting relationship between the countries. Look, this is all after the event. No one's going to be impressed with one tweet. It's interesting that NewsX World has followed that. But the fact is, this meeting in Shanghai was massive. It's a huge moment in international politics, and one that I think everyone gets a message about. You take us on, and you take on three of the most powerful nations on earth. And this is a This is long overdue, in my view. It's also interesting the fact that for 3 days, President Trump went missing. Nobody knew where he was. And this is another way in which they're trying to control the media agenda. I mean, this is just not going to work. It's not going to work. People aren't stupid. They know what's going on. And they know and they appreciate the importance of this meeting. So yes, there was a tweet. No, it's not going to make any difference. And I'm sure that the three leaders will want to meet again. I was interested to hear that President Putin traveled in Mr. Modi's car to one of the summit meetings. It's becoming a habit with Vladimir Putin. He keeps getting in everyone's cars. I don't know what's happened, whether his car had not arrived, but this is a new form of diplomacy. It's motor diplomacy, where the leaders just get in together and they have a natter, and then make decisions that perhaps nobody knows about except them. So this is a new form of democracy and a new form of politics, I think, that's going on.
All right, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Keith Vaz, for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. I'd also like to thank Dr. Nagao and Ms. Maya Sharma for also sharing their perspectives on these very crucial developments that we're tracking from Tianjin. And speaking of Tianjin, my colleague and our senior executive editor, Megha Sharma, has spoken to Su Yuting of CGTN. Let's in fact take a look at this conversation.
What are your expectations of the upcoming SCO Summit, and what are the major issues and topics that India are most interested in?
Yes, it is in many ways a historic SCO Summit that is taking place here in China, in Tianjin, 2025. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to be attending this summit. And not just that, I think the SCO Summit, the grouping, the countries are expanding as well. There are more and more countries that are becoming part of the SCO, which reflects time and age in which we live, where there is a requirement for more and more countries with sensibilities and thought processes and ideas that are in convergence with other countries, example, the existing SCO members, whether it is India or China, Russia, Pakistan, Iran, they all converging together, coming together, wanting to be part of the summit, wanting to be part of a grouping that is for the greater good, for the interests of each other's alignments, economic as well as political and strategic. All right, I also have a question for you. What do you think is the future of the India-China relationship between the two leaders?
China and India are very ancient civilizations, and the two ancient civilizations has a long history of friendship over the past few years. And we know that this year is very significant for the bilateral ties, because this year marks the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and India. And we've seen that Foreign Minister Wang Yi of China have visited India just a couple of weeks ago, and he just met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. And I just, broadcasting that a very significant event when I was on there in the Beijing studio. And I noticed that one of the signals sent out by the two leaders is that China and India are partners, not rivals. So it is a very clear signal, and that is a turning point for the improvement and development of bilateral relations. And the two sides have made great efforts in boosting bilateral cooperation, not only in economy, energy, and that trade, people-to-people exchanges and culture.
The joint declaration, the key outcomes of the SCO Summit, which is something that is anticipated when the leaders convene. There are a lot of discussions and talks happen. What do you think could be the key outcomes of the SCO Summit taking place here today?
Yes, the most important thing is that President Xi Jinping will deliver a keynote speech during the highest level summit here in Tianjin. And lots of many other countries within the big SCO family will also gathering together. And one of the highlights is that this organization this year will just release a very important declaration. It's called the Tianjin Declaration. And you know that the other highlights is that we will also forge a blueprint for the future development. That is the strategic development plan for the next 10 years toward 2035. And we believe that China will just set new vision and propositions in carrying forward the Shanghai spirit. Now, the world is still overshadowed by power politics and unilateralism. What role do you think that SCO will play in safeguarding security in the region and also promoting multilateralism?
It's interesting you mentioned about unilateralism, and in the face of unilateralism, there is this multilateralism that has emerged. We've seen one example of unilateralism coming from the tariffs that have been imposed on, I think, almost all the countries across the globe, which are reeling under this pressure. SCO becomes that alternative voice, along with BRICS, to bring the countries within the global south come together and support each other and cooperate with each other in building supply chains, in being able to build economic, trade, bilateral and diplomatic relations with each other, in further burgeoning your people-to-people connect, cultural connect, which is really important. I think this is exactly what SCO is, intent of building a grouping like this has been, and it has been extremely successful. And the fact that there are more and more countries who are vying for a place within the SCO makes it even more of a success story. The foundation of the SCO Summit was to ensure regional security for its grouping members. And leaders from all these countries, China, Russia, India, Iran, Central Asian countries, they all have come together in their own way to cooperate with each other, to share intelligence, to support each other by way of safeguarding, to ensure borders are safeguarded, to ensure cross-border terrorism does not take place, to ensure that terror financing is reduced to the minimum, completely removed, completely done away with.
All right, viewers, that's all we have for now. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.